faithfully sharing insights, exploring great books worldwide. Hi there, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today, we're diving into The Last Hug. The subtitle is Animals and Human Emotions. Do you like animals? Do you know what emotions they experience? Feel free to comment and join the discussion. In 2016, two lifelong friends met for the last time at a Dutch zoo. One was Professor Jan van Hoof, an 80-year-old Dutch biologist. The other was Mama, the female alpha of the chimpanzee troop. If you've heard our episode on chimpanzee politics, you'll recall Mama well. She was like a matriarch, commanding respect and authority in chimp society. At that time, Mama was nearly 59, like a human centenarian, and her health was failing, nearing the end. When she saw Jan enter the cage, she smiled broadly with joy. Over 40 years, they greeted each other through bars many times. Jan bowed, and Mama gently touched his head, wrapped her arm around his neck, and hugged him. This was their first and final hug. If Mama hadn't been so frail, Jan wouldn't have entered her cage. Chimpanzees, though not large, they're much stronger than humans and unpredictable. Unless you're their caretaker, approaching isn't safe. Mama likely sensed Jan's nervousness. She patted his head and neck rhythmically. Chimps often use this to calm upset infants. Weeks later, vets performed euthanasia on Mama. This final hug was recorded, aired on Dutch TV, deeply moving viewers. But some were stunned. They realized for the first time that hugging and patting to soothe, these aren't unique to humans. Chimps express similar emotions. For those who interact with animals regularly, like pet owners, it's obvious they have emotions. Your dog might look guilty and anxious after a mistake. Pet owners can tell when their cats want to play or when they're genuinely angry and ready to swipe at you. However, many biologists are skeptical about animals having emotions similar to humans. Animal behaviorists emphasize observing and describing animal behaviors objectively, without projecting human subjective experiences onto them. For instance, a rat running away isn't out of fear, but a reaction to a threat. So-called emotional displays in animals are just instinctive survival reactions. To this, the author of this book, Frans de Waal, disagrees. De Waal is a renowned Dutch primatologist and ethologist, and a student of Jan's. He's hailed as one of the world's most influential primatologists. In 2011, he was named one of the greatest minds of all time by Discover magazine. De Waal has devoted decades to studying chimpanzees and published The Age of Empathy, Primates Exposed. He has deep connections with Mama and has authored bestsellers like Primates and Philosophers and Chimpanzee Politics. From Mama and other mammals, De Waal has found plenty of evidence that animals have emotions. He believes that emotions are as essential as organs. This book has 8 chapters with over 310,000 words. In the book, De Waal shows animals' emotions like joy, sadness, anticipation, and empathy through detailed, fascinating experiments and field observations. He then extends this to humans, exploring the mysteries behind human emotions. People magazine praised the book, saying De Waal's observations are eye-opening. Yuval Noah Harari, author of Sapiens, commended the book as captivating and full of compassion for animal and human life. Next, I'll break down the book's main content into 2 parts for you. First, how animals express and understand emotions. Second, what are the common emotions in animals? All right, let's start with part 1, how animals express emotions and how they understand and control them. The author believes that emotion is a mental state that makes our hearts race, skin flush, faces tremble, chests tighten, voices rise, stomachs churn, and so on. Regarding emotions, the author makes 3 key points in the book. First, emotion isn't equivalent to instinctive reactions. Instincts are subconscious, reflexive, fixed responses that may trigger innate reactions under specific conditions. But the author argues that in a fast-changing world, this kind of reaction isn't very adaptable, while emotions are more so. Whether foraging or facing predators, emotions allow for careful assessment of the situation before deciding what to do next. For example, a monkey encountering a snake becomes terrified, and a person narrowly missing a speeding car on the road trembles with fear. Then the monkey judges if the snake is venomous and whether it needs to flee right away. Whereas a person assesses if the surroundings are safe and if they should use a crosswalk, an evaluation that might take just a fraction of a second. Past experience influences how humans or animals judge the current situation. Facing the same circumstances, different people experience different emotions. Say, a dog's bark might scare you, making you hesitate to move forward. But if you see the dog is leashed, your fear disappears. Meanwhile, a dog owner hearing a bark might happily look for where the dog is. Second, emotions aren't the opposite of cognition. People often pit emotions against rationality, but the author believes emotions are a vital part of intelligence. American neuroscientist Antonio Damasio studied a brain-damaged patient named Elliot, whose ventromedial prefrontal cortex was impaired. This area, at the front of the brain, controls emotions and behavior. Neurologists found that while Elliot was articulate, had strong comprehension, and good reasoning skills, he was emotionally flat. During hours of talks with neurologists, he showed no emotional expression. Elliot never felt sadness, impatience, anger, or frustration, and this emotional lack made him unable to make decisions. He might spend an entire afternoon deciding where to eat. He also struggled to stick with a task, and reaching a conclusion was even tougher. This clearly shows that having only rationality without emotion doesn't work. Third, emotions are not equivalent to feelings. Some anthropologists think that without language, emotions can't be perceived, so we can't say animals have emotions.
But the author contends that in evolutionary and human history, emotions clearly came before language, and emotions and feelings are separate. Emotions motivate behavior.
When humans or animals are afraid, they protect themselves. When disgusted, they avoid what sickens them. We can observe emotions through facial expressions like frowning or smiling, or body language like frantic waving, while feelings are the subjective evaluation of emotions, which are personal and harder for others to understand. Oh, I might not understand your sadness. You say you're heartbroken, but who knows if your sadness isn't mixed with relief, anger, or other emotions you're unwilling to mention or admit. The author believes that for animals' feelings, we can only guess, but that doesn't mean emotions leave no trace. So, how do animals express emotions? An important clue is expressions and body language. Horses pull back their lips when greeting each other. Cats flatten their ears when scared. Rodents' facial expressions can reveal their inner emotions. Studies show that when mice feel pain, they flatten their ears and puff out their cheeks, and their peers can recognize this pained expression. In experiments, mice deliberately stayed near photos of relaxed mice and avoided photos of pained mice when presented with both. Regarding expressions, the author focuses on the tense grin in primates. The bared teeth grin, a common smile, somewhat resembles a fake smile. When boys grin, they retract their lips to expose teeth and gums. Humans unconsciously pull their lips back from their teeth when peeling citrus fruits to avoid sour juice splashing their faces. And on roller coasters, people sometimes make this tense grin. Similarly, bonobos in Kenya do it before eating cacti to avoid lip pricks. This is the tense bared teeth grin. In primate hierarchical societies, it's also a social signal, expressing mixed emotions of submission, fear, and a desire for acceptance. In a rhesus monkey group studied by the author, when the female leader passed by, all females would bare their teeth in a wide grin to show respect. If the leader condescended to join them, they'd grin even more obsequiously. In rhesus monkeys, only subordinates bear this expression when facing higher-ranking monkeys.
The author believes human smiles also evolved from the primate tense bared teeth grin.
In situations of worry, tension, or even friendliness, we often flash this grin to convey a signal. I mean, no harm. Women smile more than men, and smiling men are more likely seeking to build friendly connections than non-smiling ones. A study analyzing pre-fight photos from the Ultimate Fighting Championship found fighters with tenser smiles in photos tended to lose their matches later that day. Researchers concluded that smiling indicates a lack of physical dominance. The fighters who smiled the most were the ones most in need of appeasement. Animals not only express emotions but can also interpret others' emotions and control their own to achieve goals. Simply put, animals have emotional intelligence too. First, let's discuss the ability to interpret others' emotions. Researchers found apes can match happy faces with joyful scenes and tense bared teeth grins with vet-related scenarios. In the experiment, researcher Lisa showed short videos, either happy scenes like a keeper with fruit or unpleasant ones like a vet with a tranquilizer gun. Passing by, after watching videos, chimpanzees had to choose between two photos, one with a happy smile, the other with a tense bared teeth grin. During selections, Lisa measured their skin temperature and found when they chose the tense grin, their finger skin temperature plummeted when seeing the tense grin photo, indicating fear, similar to humans whose extremities turn cold when afraid. Mice show the same reaction when scared. Their tails and paws become cold. The author suggests different videos likely evoked good or bad feelings in chimpanzees, helping them match corresponding expressions. In another experiment with capuchin monkeys, researchers showed photos of flowers, fruits, other animals, or fellow capuchins. Capuchins identified photos of their own species fastest and reacted to them. If the photo showed a monkey with a poker face, they refused to touch it. But if the monkey was raising eyebrows friendly, they'd smack their lips at the photo. When animals link expressions to emotions, they possess the foundation of empathy. Empathy lets us feel others' emotions and understand their situations.
When watching a tightrope walker, we empathize, worry for them, as if we're on the tightrope ourselves.
This is empathy. We unconsciously merge with the other person's body to gain a similar experience. A biological basis for empathy is mirror neurons. In 1996, neuroscientists in Parma, Italy, discovered mirror neurons in macaques. These neurons help primates imitate others, like learning from mothers to extract seeds from fruits. So, different monkey groups have varied seed extraction methods, and their descendants use the same approaches. Monkeys not only enjoy imitating, but also being imitated. In one experiment, two researchers gave plastic balls to capuchin monkeys. One mimicked every throwing action while the other didn't, and the imitator became more popular. We humans also have mirror neurons when we perform actions like reaching for a cup or see others doing actions. For example, when seeing someone else grabbing a cup, mirror neurons are activated. The result is that we involuntarily mimic others, like catching a yawn. This contagion links to empathy. Those most susceptible often show strongest empathy in tests. Women generally score higher in empathy and are more easily infected. Children with empathy deficits, like those with autism, often aren't infected by yawns. In monkey groups, yawning spreads too. Dogs start yawning after hearing their owners yawn. Researchers taught chimpanzees to peer through a hole in a barrel at an iPad. Once they saw other apes yawning on video, they began yawning frantically. However, chimpanzees don't show equal empathy to all kin. Its strength depends on familiarity. Only if the chimp in the video is known to them will the tested chimp yawn back. If the other is unknown, they respond coldly. The same happens in humans. Scientists found that if a man stands beside his wife and she starts yawning, he'll follow suit. But if it's a stranger beside him, he's unlikely to be affected. The more common ground or familiarity we share with others, the stronger our empathic response becomes. Most of the time, empathy has positive effects. For example, when caring for offspring, both animals and humans need empathy. But empathy is actually a neutral ability. Understanding others' emotions and situations doesn't mean we'll necessarily do good or evil to them. It entirely depends on one's intentions. A used car salesman might sympathize with you and joke around, then sell you the car at a high price. A little boy might deliberately throw stones at small animals, laughing at their panic. Similarly, chimpanzees' developed brains let them understand others' suffering and enjoy it. In one game, young lab chimpanzees lured chickens with breadcrumbs, then hit them with sticks or poked them with wire. Wild chimpanzees also abuse small animals like squirrels. They do this while laughing, as if it were great fun. Japanese field researcher Tetsuro Matsuzawa documented an adult chimpanzee named Nonkombo how to torture a small squirrel to death. Nonkombo dragged and shook the poor creature for 6 minutes until it died with desperate cries. Zumba described how Numbo allowed the squirrel to fight back, and a smile appeared on his face. Earlier, we discussed animals' emotional understanding. Now let's explore their emotional control abilities. Some philosophers believe humans stand out because we can suppress impulses and control emotions. But animals can too. When hunting mice, cats need to observe stealthily rather than charge immediately to ensure success. The author also records a story about Mama in the book. One day, a female chimp named Orchi had a minor conflict with Mama over food. Orchi was an estrus at the time, and females in heat receive male protection. So Orchi immediately ran to the alpha male to complain. To avoid direct conflict with the alpha male, Mama compromised. She magnanimously reconciled with Orchi on the spot and hugged her. But just hours later, when the chimps were returned to the building and split into small groups for the night, Mama attacked Orche without hesitation. Because now there were no male chimpanzees present. The earlier reconciliation was just temporary restraint. Achieving this requires highly developed impulse control. Beyond controlling emotions and impulses, chimpanzees also know to control their facial expressions. As we mentioned earlier, smiles can reveal inner unease and anxiety. So before turning to face a challenger, male chimpanzees use their hands to pull lips back over teeth, avoiding smiles that might show timidity. The author believes this shows chimpanzees are better at controlling their hands than their expressions. This is very similar to us humans. Like when we're on calls, we unconsciously make various expressions even though others can't see us. Or how hard it is to appear thrilled when actually angry, or seem furious when secretly delighted. All right, we've covered how animals express, understand, and control emotions. Now, what common emotions do they experience? Let's now move into part 2. Beyond basic emotions like sadness, joy, fear, and disgust, animal emotions also extend to past and future. Next, we'll focus on these past and future-oriented emotions. Past-oriented emotions mainly include gratitude, revenge, and forgiveness, all tied to social relationships. You're probably familiar with animals showing gratitude. We often hear rescued dolphins or whales swimming back to gently nudge rescuers or lift them. Gratitude is even more common in chimpanzees. For instance, a chimpanzee named Kunda was rescued by humans and released into the wild. He'd already left, but then seemed to realize this wasn't proper and returned to hug his rescuers tightly, lingering for a long time. At Mama's zoo, there was a female chimp named Gorgo, Mama's old confidant. They always backed each other up since Mama supported her. Gorgo loved provoking the author, pulling at him through the bars. She never did this when Mama wasn't around. But after the author helped Gorgo learn to raise her child, she became deeply respectful toward him. Originally, Gorgo had insufficient milk, and several of her babies died. Every time she lost a child, she fell into deep sorrow. She would self-harm, refuse to eat, scream heart-wrenchingly, and rub her eyes like a human child crying. Although we humans are considered the only primates that shed tears, later the author taught Gorgo to bottle feed her baby. From then on, Gorgo showed great enthusiasm and gratitude towards the author.
Every meeting was like seeing long-lost family.
Every time the author left, Gorgo would try to hold his hand and whimper despairingly. Now that we've covered gratitude, let's talk about revenge. Revenge is the opposite of gratitude. This negative emotion is also common in animals. There are often stories of animal revenge in zoos. Revenge takers are usually elephants and apes, species with excellent memory. If you treat them badly, they'll wait for the right moment to seek revenge by any means. Chimpanzees also retaliate against each other. For example, as mentioned earlier, Mama's night attack on Orche. In a group, if a female chimpanzee is often bullied by a dominant female but can't fight back, and then once her enemy is involved in a fight with someone else, she'll join the fray to give her enemy a hard time.
See?
In the author's research career, there are thousands of such cases. The ultimate emotion towards past events is forgiveness. Resolving conflicts is a key part of social life, but requires both parties to timely dissolve anger and fear during confrontation. Reconciliation from these emotions exists in all social animals. Among mammals, from rats and dolphins to wolves and elephants, and even in birds, primates reconcile with partners through grooming and kissing. Mama is a master at reconciliation. If two chimpanzees conflict but neither wants to take the first step, Mama would first groom one of them, then after a while groom the other. Then the first one would follow Mama closely, slowly approaching its enemy. If it doesn't follow, Mama would pull it to make it come along. Until the two chimpanzees get close enough to groom each other, Mama would casually stand up and leave, letting them reconcile through mutual grooming. Famous primatologist Jane Goodall also recorded this detail in her book Reason for Hope. Interested listeners can click the link in the transcript below to hop over to Reason for Hope for more wild chimpanzee stories. All right, having covered gratitude, revenge, and forgiveness, these past-oriented emotions, let's now talk about future-oriented ones, like hope and anticipation. Take hope, for instance. Long-tailed macaques at some temples in Bali, Indonesia, have developed a habit of stealing tourists' items. They jump on shoulders to snatch glasses or smartphones, or swipe flip-flops. And I think they don't take these things to play, but quietly wait for tourists to redeem them with food. A few peanuts won't cut it. They demand at least a whole bag of cookies. Primatologists studying extortion believe the monkeys clearly know what's important to humans, and they're likely full of hope when seeking a trade. But when that hope is dashed, animals experience disappointment or other negative emotions. In an experiment, American psychologist Otto Tinkle hid lettuce or bananas under cups, showed it to macaques, then let them into the room. The macaques always ran to the cup hiding bananas. If they found lettuce instead of bananas, they'd stare blankly at the cup, frantically look around, check repeatedly, and even scream angrily at the experimenter. Because macaques remember seeing the banana hidden, they enter with high expectations. But now the banana's gone, leaving them agitated and angry. It takes a long time before they finally accept the lettuce. And what animals anticipate about the future also depends on their past experiences. Growing evidence shows animals remember specific events, which affects their current emotions. In one study, a group of piglets lived on concrete floors in small pens. Another group played in a large box with fresh straw replaced daily. Then all piglets were trained to respond to two different sounds. A positive sound meant they'd get an apple slice as a reward. Soon, these clever piglets learned to follow the positive sound. Next, researchers played an ambiguous sound to the pigs, somewhere between positive and negative, and the results showed that those living in comfortable wooden boxes always anticipated good outcomes and eagerly approached this ambiguous sound, while piglets in oppressive concrete pens avoided it, fearing those dreaded plastic bags would reappear. If the pigs' living conditions changed, their reaction to the ambiguous sound also shifted. This shows their daily life greatly influences their worldview. In the piglet's case, The better their prior environment, the more optimistically they viewed the future. All right, after discussing so many emotions shared by animals and humans, like gratitude, forgiveness, ambition, or hopeful, pessimistic expectations, the author notes some emotions animals may lack, like guilt. At least dogs don't feel guilty. Dog owners might disagree with this. After misbehaving, dogs often put on an innocent, guilty look, drooping ears, pitiful eyes, lowered body posture, head turned back, tail tucked between legs, wagging rapidly. But after various tests, American canine cognition scientist Alexandra Horowitz argues dogs aren't feeling guilt for wrongdoing. This guilty expression is just a natural reaction to scolding. If owners reprimand them, they amp up the pitiful act. But if owners don't pursue it, they show no sign of remorse. Thus, the author believes what dogs display isn't guilt, but classic hierarchical behavior, a mix of submission and appeasement when facing an angry owner. They merely want to quell the owner's anger. With non-hierarchical animals like cats, you rarely see any guilty expression. This fear stems from social hierarchy. Violating it risks expulsion or tragic consequences, hence some dogs' extreme post-mistake reactions. Austrian ethologist Konrad Lorenz had a dog named Bully who accidentally bit him. Though Lorenz comforted Bully, instead of scolding, the dog nearly broke down. He lay on the carpet, breathing weakly, occasionally letting out pain sighs. Weeks passed, but Bully remained emotionally distressed. Biting his owner, a higher-ranking member of the pack, risked expulsion, a social rule deeply internalized by dogs.
Violating such rules causes profound emotional pain. As for human guilt displays, the author believes they're often just tactics to avoid negative consequences.
Public figures' apologies may drip with fake tears, but do they truly believe they're wrong? Or are they just performing guilt to evade accountability? Oh, that concludes part 2. Animal emotions span both past and future. They hold grudges, seek revenge, show gratitude, and harbor expectations. While studying animal emotions, the author often faces questions. When we discover fish and crabs avoid painful stimuli, should monkeys undergo cognitive tests with chemical injections? Should we keep dolphins in captivity or pets at home? The author notes we've long treated animals as unfeeling machines. If we maintain this ignorance, we're more likely to disregard them entirely. Thus, he firmly believes pet ownership, zoo visits, or wildlife sanctuary interactions help maintain positive relationships and protect animals. For species like orangutans whose habitats are being destroyed, birth in a top-tier zoo might be preferable to birth in Borneo's vanishing jungles. Research animal conditions are evolving too. The more similarities we find, the easier it becomes to extend our morality to animals. Western nations already enforce laws requiring researchers to provide socialized housing for primates. For other animals, the author believes society must collectively decide how we use animals and what relationships to build. So, what are your thoughts on this? Feel free to share your comments below. All right, this concludes The Last Hug. That wraps up our interpretation of this book. You can find the reading notes below the audio. We'll see you next time.